The transport ship Meridian shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace, its hull scarred from a dozen battles. Captain Sarah Chen pressed her face against the small porthole, watching the alien prison world of Kethmar grow larger in the viewport. The planet's surface was a patchwork of crimson deserts and black volcanic ranges, with no visible signs of civilization. Perfect for what the Galactic Council had in mind. Another human delivery, growled the Thrakari guard, his reptilian features twisted in disgust. The 7-foot alien towered over Sarah, his scaled hands gripping a plasma rifle. You primates always think you're so special. Let's see how special you feel when the hunters find you. Sarah said nothing. She had learned months ago that speaking only brought more pain. The bruises on her ribs were still healing from her last attempt at defiance. Around her, 23 other humans sat in chains, their faces hollow with fear and exhaustion. They had all committed the same crime in the eyes of the Galactic Council, being human. The ship touched down with a metallic groan. Through the porthole, Sarah could see massive creatures moving in the distance, the Kethmar hunters. She had heard whispers about them in the prison transports, beings that stood 12 feet tall, with 4 arms and natural armor plating. They hunted for sport, and humans were their favorite prey. Time to go, meat, the Thrakari guard snarled, unlocking the chains that bound the humans together. Welcome to your new home. Try to survive longer than the last batch. They lasted 3 days. One by one, the humans were pushed toward the exit ramp. Sarah watched as her fellow prisoners stumbled forward, some crying, others muttering prayers to gods that seemed to have forgotten them. She had been their unofficial leader during the transport, organizing food distribution and settling disputes. Now she felt responsible for their deaths. The ramp lowered with a hydraulic hiss and the alien air hit them like a wall. It was thick and humid, tasting of sulfur and decay. Sarah's lungs burned with each breath, but she forced herself to stay upright. The others looked to her for guidance even now. Stay together, she whispered as they were herded off the ship. Don't run unless I give the signal. Running triggers their hunting instincts. The landscape before them was even more brutal than it had appeared from space. Jagged rocks jutted from the ground like broken teeth, and the air shimmered with heat waves. In the distance, she could see the massive forms of the hunters moving between stone formations, their forearms swaying as they walked. The Thrakari guards dumped their meager supplies on the ground, some water containers, basic tools and emergency food rations, enough to keep them alive for perhaps a week, maybe 2 if they were careful. The hunters will give you a day's head start, the lead guard announced. Standard sporting rules. After that, you belong to them. Good luck, humans. You'll need it. The transport ship lifted off, leaving the humans alone on the hostile world. Sarah gathered the group around her, looking each person in the eye. There were scientists, engineers, teachers, farmers, ordinary people whose only crime had been existing while human. Listen to me carefully, Sarah said, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her stomach. We're not going to die here. I don't care what they think we are or what they've planned for us. We're humans and we're survivors. Dr. Elizabeth Reeves, an elderly xenobiologist, shook her head. Sarah, you don't understand. I've studied the Kethmar hunters. They're apex predators. Their skin can deflect most energy weapons and they can track prey across continents. No one has ever escaped this place. No one human has ever been given the chance to try properly, Sarah replied. They expect us to run in panic, to scatter and make easy targets. That's not what we're going to do. She pointed to a cluster of volcanic rocks about 2 miles away. We head there first. We need shelter, and we need to understand our environment. Marcus, you were military, right? A young man with burn scars on his hands nodded. Marine Corps, ma'am. Engineering specialist. Good. I need you to assess what we can use for weapons and fortification. The rest of you start thinking about your skills. What can each of you contribute to keeping us alive? As the group began to organize, Sarah felt a familiar sensation creeping up her spine. She had felt it before. During the food riots on Earth, when she had organized the resistance against the corrupt planetary governor, it was the feeling of being underestimated, of having enemies who saw her as weak prey. They had learned too late that Sarah Chen was not prey. The group moved across the barren landscape, carrying their supplies and supporting the weaker members. Sarah took point, her eyes constantly scanning for threats. She had studied every piece of information about this world during the transport, memorizing the guard conversations and analyzing the footage they showed to terrorize the prisoners. The hunters were formidable, but they were also predictable. They relied on brute force and fear, hunting in patterns that had worked for centuries. But they had never faced a human who understood that the greatest strength wasn't in muscle or natural armor. It was in the ability to adapt, to learn, and to turn disadvantages into weapons. As they reached the rocky outcropping, Sarah began to see possibilities. The volcanic stone was sharp enough to cut. The formations provided natural choke points, and the thermal vents could mask their heat signatures. The hunters might have physical advantages, but they had grown complacent, hunting the same way for generations. "Start gathering anything that can be used as a tool or weapon," she ordered. "Dr. Reeves, I need you to analyze the local ecosystem. What's edible, what's poisonous, what can we use?" Marcus, begin surveying defensive positions. The scientist looked at her with new respect. "You're actually planning to fight them, aren't you?" Sarah picked up a shard of volcanic glass, testing its edge against her thumb. A thin line of blood appeared, but the makeshift blade was razor sharp. "They made one critical mistake when they brought us here, Doctor. They assumed we would behave like their previous prey. They assumed we would run, hide, and eventually die." She looked out across the alien landscape, where the massive forms of the hunters moved with casual confidence. Tomorrow they would begin the hunt, expecting to find scattered, terrified humans fleeing in panic across the wasteland. Instead, they were going to find something the galaxy had never seen before. Humans who had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Sarah felt that old familiar fire building in her chest. The same drive that had helped her survive the gangs of Earth's lower cities. The same determination that had seen her through military service and civilian leadership. The hunters thought they were dealing with prey. They were about to learn that they had awakened something far more dangerous, a human who refused to be victim. The first night on Kethmar passed without sleep for Sarah Chen. While her fellow humans rested fitfully in the shelter of the volcanic rocks, she studied the movements of their would-be hunters. The massive creatures were easy to spot even in the dim light of the planet's twin moons. They moved in predictable patterns, checking the same locations every few hours, following paths worn smooth by countless hunting expeditions. Dr. Reeves had made several important discoveries during their first day. The volcanic soil contained high levels of sulfur compounds that could be harvested and concentrated. Several of the local plant species were not only edible, but contained mild stimulants that could help with fatigue and pain. Most importantly, she had identified a species of burrowing insect whose acidic secretions could dissolve the hunter's natural armor plating. Marcus had worked through the night as well, creating detailed maps of their surroundings and identifying strategic positions. The rocky outcropping they had chosen was better than Sarah had hoped. It had multiple escape routes, natural choke points, and thermal vents that would confuse the hunter's heat-tracking abilities. "They'll come for us today," Marcus said quietly, checking the crude spear he had crafted from metal scraps and volcanic glass. "Their patrol patterns changed about an hour ago. They're getting excited." Sarah nodded, her attention focused on the makeshift weapons and traps they had prepared. 24 humans against creatures that had never known defeat on their own world. The odds were impossible, but Sarah had faced impossible odds before. The key was not to fight the enemy's strengths, but to create a battlefield where those strengths became weaknesses. "Remember the plan," she told the group as they gathered in the pre-dawn darkness. "We don't run. We don't scatter. We make them come to us, and we make them pay for every step." The hunters appeared at sunrise, 4 of them moving in a loose formation across the wasteland. Even at a distance, Sarah could see their casual confidence. They carried no weapons. Their forearms ended in razor-sharp claws, and their natural armor had never failed them before. They expected to find humans fleeing in terror, easy prey to be hunted down one by one. Instead, they found an empty campsite with clear signs that the humans had moved deeper into the rocky maze. The lead hunter, distinguished by the silver markings on his armor plates, gestured to his companions. They spread out and began tracking the obvious trail the humans had left behind. Sarah watched from her concealed position as the massive predators approached the first trap. Dr. Reeves had worked through the night to create a concentrated acid solution from the insect secretions. Marcus had rigged it to drop from above when triggered by pressure plates made from scavenged metal. The first hunter stepped directly onto the trigger mechanism. The acid solution poured down onto his armored shoulders and back, and for the first time in his species' recorded history, a Kethmar hunter screamed in pain. The acid ate through his natural protection like water through paper, leaving raw flesh exposed to the sulfurous air. The other hunters roared in rage and confusion. This was not how the hunt was supposed to work. Their prey was not supposed to fight back, not supposed to hurt them. They charged forward, abandoning their careful formation in favor of brutal aggression. They ran directly into the second trap. Marcus had spent hours preparing a rock slide, triggered by carefully placed supports. When the supports were knocked away, tons of volcanic stone came crashing down into the narrow passage. One hunter was caught directly beneath the avalanche, his agonized roars cut short by crushing weight. Another was trapped beneath a boulder, his legs pinned and broken. Sarah stepped out from her concealment holding a spear tipped with concentrated acid. The remaining two hunters turned toward her, their alien features twisted with rage and something they had never experienced before. Fear. "You're not hunting prey," Sarah said calmly, her voice carrying across the rocky terrain. "You're facing humans, and humans don't die quietly." The uninjured hunter charged at her with a roar that shook dust from the surrounding rocks. Sarah didn't run. Instead, she dove to the side at the last moment, letting the creature's momentum carry it past her. As it stumbled, she drove her acid-tipped spear deep into the joint between its arm and shoulder, where the armor plating was thinner. The hunter spun toward her, but Dr. Reeves and 3 other humans emerged from concealment, each carrying similar weapons. They attacked from multiple directions, targeting the vulnerable points Sarah had identified during her night-long observation. The creature's claws found flesh, leaving deep gashes on 2 of the humans, but they pressed their attack without faltering. Within minutes, the mighty hunter lay motionless on the ground, its acidic blood hissing against the volcanic stone. The final hunter, still trapped beneath the boulder, looked up at Sarah with eyes that held something no Kethmar had ever felt while hunting: respect and terror. "Your species," he gasped in broken galactic common. "What are you?" Sarah knelt beside the dying creature, her face calm despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "We're the species you made the mistake of hunting. We're humans and we adapt." She stood and turned to her people. 2 were seriously wounded but would survive with proper care. The rest looked at her with a mixture of awe and renewed hope. They had done the impossible. They had defeated the Kethmar hunters in open combat. But Sarah knew this was only the beginning. The dead hunters would be missed and more would come. The difference now was that the humans had weapons, armor pieces stripped from their fallen enemies, and most importantly, they had proved to themselves that they could win. "Strip everything useful from the bodies," she ordered. "Their claws, their armor plates, any technology they carried. Dr. Reeves, I need to know everything about their biology, how they track, how they communicate, what their weaknesses are." Marcus was already examining the hunter's claws, testing their sharpness and balance. "These are better than anything we could make with our current resources. And their armor? It's not just protective, it's got some kind of built-in cooling system." Sarah nodded, her mind already working on the next phase of their survival. The Galactic Council had sent them here to die, to provide entertainment for alien predators who had never known defeat. Instead, they had created something far more dangerous: humans with nothing to lose and every reason to fight. As they worked to salvage what they could from their victory, Sarah looked out across the wasteland where she knew more hunters would soon appear. Let them come. Each battle would make her people stronger, more experienced, more dangerous. The prey had become predators, and the galaxy was about to learn what that meant. The hunters had ruled this world for centuries, but they had never faced an enemy that learned from every encounter, that turned every disadvantage into a weapon, that refused to accept defeat even when facing impossible odds. They had never faced humans, and that was going to be their downfall. 3 weeks had passed since the first battle, and the Kethmar hunting grounds had transformed into something unrecognizable. Where once the massive predators had roamed freely, confident in their dominance, now they moved in larger groups, constantly watching the shadows and testing the ground before each step. Sarah Chen stood atop a rocky outcrop, wearing armor plates taken from fallen hunters and carrying weapons that had been crafted from their claws and bones. Below her, 18 humans worked with deadly efficiency, setting traps and preparing ambush points. 5 of their original group had died in the battles that followed their first victory, but those who remained had become something the galaxy had never seen before. They had become human apex predators. Dr. Reeves approached, carrying a collection of vials filled with various colored liquids. Her elderly hands were now steady and sure, stained with the chemicals she had learned to extract from their alien environment. "The latest batch is ready," she reported. "The paralysis compound should work within seconds, and I've managed to create a version that's airborne. We can deploy it using the wind patterns you've identified." The transformation of the gentle scientist into a biochemical weapons expert would have shocked anyone who had known her before Kethmar. But survival had a way of bringing out capabilities that people never knew they possessed. Marcus moved up beside them, his military bearing now enhanced by months of guerrilla warfare against impossible odds. His body was covered in scars from hunter claws, but his eyes held the fierce confidence of a man who had learned to turn his enemies' strengths against them. "Patrol coming in from the north," he reported. 8 hunters moving in formation. "They've learned not to spread out anymore, but they're also moving more slowly, checking every shadow. They're scared, Sarah. Actually scared." Sarah smiled, an expression that would have chilled any hunter who could have seen it. The scared young woman who had been dumped on this planet was gone, replaced by something far more dangerous. She had learned to think like a predator, to see every piece of terrain as a potential weapon, every enemy weakness as an opportunity. The approaching hunters were the largest group they had faced yet. The creatures had finally understood that humans were not prey to be casually hunted, but dangerous enemies that required serious attention. They moved with military precision, their forearms ready for combat, their armored heads constantly turning to scan for threats. They had learned caution, but it was too late. Sarah's humans had spent weeks studying every aspect of their behavior, identifying patterns and weaknesses that the hunters themselves didn't know they had. "Jennifer, Thomas, get into position on the eastern slope," Sarah ordered quietly into the communication device they had built from hunter technology. "Wait for my signal. Dr. Reeves, deploy the airborne compound when they reach the narrow pass. Marcus, prepare the rockfall, but don't trigger it until after the gas takes effect." Her people moved with practiced silence, disappearing into positions they had prepared days ago. Each human now carried multiple weapons crafted from hunter remains, knew dozens of ways to bring down creatures twice their size, and had learned to work together with deadly precision. The hunters entered the narrow pass exactly as Sarah had predicted. They were following the same patrol pattern they had used for generations, unable to conceive that their prey might have studied their habits and turned that knowledge into a weapon. Dr. Reeves triggered the gas canisters she had hidden in the rocks above. The paralysis compound was invisible and odorless, created from concentrated toxins found in local plant life. The hunters continued forward for several more steps before the effects began to take hold. The first sign was confusion. The massive creatures began to stumble, their forearms losing coordination. One hunter tried to roar a warning, but found his vocal cords were no longer responding to his commands. Within 30 seconds, all 8 creatures had collapsed, conscious but unable to move. Sarah dropped from her concealed position, landing silently beside the paralyzed predators. The lead hunter's eyes tracked her movement, filled with rage and something that looked almost like respect. These creatures had dominated their world for millennia, but they were learning that humans could adapt to any environment, overcome any odds. "You made a mistake," Sarah said quietly, kneeling beside the fallen hunter. "Your species became too comfortable with being predators. You forgot that the galaxy contains creatures even more dangerous than you." She gestured to her people, who emerged from their hiding places with calm efficiency. "We're going to take everything useful from your equipment. Your weapons, your armor, your communication devices, and then we're going to use them to hunt the rest of your kind." The paralyzed hunter's eyes widened with something approaching horror. Sarah stood and walked to the next creature, checking the advanced technology integrated into its armor. The hunters carried sophisticated equipment, energy weapons, tracking devices, communication systems that could reach across the planet. "Dr. Reeves, can you analyze these power sources?" Sarah asked, indicating the glowing components built into the hunter's chest plate. "I want to know how they work, and I want to know if we can replicate them." The scientist nodded eagerly, her eyes bright with intellectual curiosity. 3 weeks ago, she had been a mild-mannered researcher. Now she was a warrior scientist, as comfortable with creating deadly weapons as she had once been with studying peaceful life forms. As her team worked to strip the paralyzed hunters of everything useful, Sarah climbed back to her observation point and looked out across the alien landscape. In the distance, she could see more hunters approaching, not randomly but with obvious purpose. The creatures were organizing a major response to the human threat. Marcus joined her, carrying an energy weapon taken from one of the paralyzed creatures. "They're mobilizing everything they have," he observed. "Looks like at least 30 hunters moving in coordinated groups. They've finally realized that we're not going away." Sarah nodded, her mind already working on tactics for the coming battle. 30 hunters would have been an impossible threat when they first arrived on this world. Now, with captured weapons, defensive positions, and weeks of combat experience, it was merely a challenging problem to solve. "They think numbers will make the difference," she said quietly. "They still don't understand what they're dealing with. Humans don't just adapt to our environment, we remake it to suit our needs." She turned to address her team. "Listen up, everyone. The hunters are bringing everything they have for one final push. They think they can overwhelm us with brute force. They're about to learn why that's the worst possible strategy to use against humans." The transformation was complete. Sarah Chen, who had arrived on this world as frightened prey, had become something the galaxy had never seen. She was no longer just surviving, she was conquering. The hunters had created their own worst nightmare, humans with nothing to lose and every reason to fight. The war for Kethmar was about to begin in earnest, and Sarah intended to win it. The battle came at dawn, when the twin suns of Kethmar cast long shadows across the volcanic wasteland. Sarah Chen stood at the center of her defensive position, surrounded by technological marvels that would have seemed impossible weeks earlier. Her surviving humans had not merely adapted to their environment, they had conquered it completely. 37 hunters approached in 3 coordinated groups, the largest military force their species had ever assembled for a single hunt. Their armor gleamed in the morning light, and they carried weapons that could level mountains. At their head walked the pack leader, a creature so massive that the ground trembled with each step. Silver and gold markings covered his natural armor, indicating generations of successful hunts. The pack leader had never known defeat. In 8 centuries of life, he had killed thousands of prey animals from dozens of species. He had earned his position through strength and cunning, and had led his people to domination of their world. But as he looked across the killing ground where his hunters had been systematically destroyed, he felt something his species had never experienced: doubt. Sarah watched the approaching army through sensors she had built from captured hunter technology. Her people were ready, positioned throughout the maze of rocky passages they had spent weeks preparing. Each human carried multiple weapons, knew exactly what their role would be in the coming battle, and had absolute confidence in their leader. "Dr. Reeves, status on the area denial weapons?" Sarah asked quietly into her communication device. "All charges are placed and ready for remote detonation," came the reply. The elderly scientist's voice was calm and professional. "The acid dispersal system is fully loaded, and the paralysis gas canisters are positioned throughout the target zone." Marcus checked in next. "All marksmen are in position with captured energy weapons. We've got overlapping fields of fire covering every approach route. They can't advance without exposing themselves to concentrated firepower." Sarah nodded, her attention focused on the tactical display she had created using hunter technology. Every approach route was covered, every possible escape path was blocked, and every weapon system was coordinated through the communication network they had built from salvaged equipment. The hunters had made a critical error. They were still thinking like predators facing prey, assuming that superior numbers and firepower would guarantee victory. They hadn't understood that humans were different, that humans could take any environment, any set of conditions, any collection of available resources, and turn them into weapons. The pack leader raised one massive arm, signaling his forces to begin their final assault. The hunters charged forward with roars that shook the mountains, confident that their overwhelming force would crush the humans who had dared to resist them. Sarah waited until they were fully committed to their attack routes before giving her own signal. The first explosions erupted beneath the feet of the lead group, acid charges that Dr. Reeves had developed from concentrated insect secretions. The volcanic ground cracked and dissolved, dropping a dozen hunters into pits that had been precisely calculated to trap them without killing them immediately. The paralysis gas came next, invisible clouds that rolled across the battlefield like fog. Hunters who had been charging forward with unstoppable momentum suddenly found their limbs refusing to obey their commands. They collapsed in heaps, conscious but helpless. Then came the energy weapons fire from concealed positions throughout the rocky maze. Sarah's people had spent weeks learning to use captured hunter technology, and they fired with precision that would have impressed any military force in the galaxy. The directed energy beams found weak points in hunter armor with surgical accuracy, but the hunters were not defeated yet. The pack leader and his elite guards had anticipated some resistance, and they wore heavier armor and carried more powerful weapons. They pressed forward through the gas clouds and energy weapons fire, their massive forms absorbing damage that would have killed smaller creatures. Sarah emerged from her command position, wearing a full suit of hunter armor that had been modified to fit her smaller human frame. In her hands she carried weapons that no creature on Kethmar had ever seen, energy projectors that she had built by combining hunter technology with human engineering principles. The pack leader focused on her immediately, recognizing the leader of the prey animals that had caused such devastation to his people. He discarded his ranged weapons and extended his forearms, each ending in claws that could slice through metal. This would be personal combat, predator against prey as it had always been. Sarah didn't retreat. Instead, she activated the gravity manipulators she had built into her armor, devices that used hunter power sources to alter local gravitational fields. The pack leader's charge suddenly became clumsy as his massive weight began working against him instead of for him. She moved with inhuman speed, enhanced by stimulants that Dr. Reeves had synthesized from local plant compounds. Her weapons fired in carefully coordinated patterns, each shot aimed at joints and weak points that weeks of analysis had revealed in hunter anatomy. The pack leader roared in pain and rage as energy beams burned through his armor and into his flesh. He had never been injured in single combat before, never faced an enemy that could match his strength and exceed his speed. But Sarah was not just faster. She was smarter, more adaptable, more creative in her use of available resources. Around them, the battle continued to rage. Sarah's people fought with tactical precision that made the most experienced military units look like amateurs. They used every piece of terrain as a weapon, every piece of captured technology as a force multiplier, every moment of the fight as an opportunity to learn and adapt. One by one, the hunters fell. Some to energy weapons fire from concealed positions, others to acid traps and paralysis gas, a few to improvised explosives that Marcus had created from hunter power sources. But all of them fell because humans had learned to turn their own strengths against them. The pack leader made one final desperate charge. His remaining strength focused on the small human who had somehow become his equal in combat. Sarah waited until the last possible moment, then activated every system in her modified armor simultaneously. Gravity fields, energy projectors, chemical enhancers, tactical computers. Everything she had built from the remains of the hunter's own technology. The combined effect was devastating. The pack leader's charge became a helpless tumble as gravity fields pulled him in multiple directions at once. Energy weapons burned through his armor from angles he couldn't defend against. He crashed to the ground at Sarah's feet, his massive form broken and bleeding. With his dying breath, he looked up at the small human who had defeated him and spoke in perfect galactic common. What are you?" Sarah removed her helmet, letting the pack leader see her face clearly. She was no longer the frightened woman who had been dumped on this planet to die. She had become something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. "I'm human," she said simply, "and humans don't stay prey for very long." The battle was over. 37 of the galaxy's most feared predators lay dead or dying, defeated by 18 humans who had refused to accept their role as victims. Sarah looked out across the killing ground she had created, then turned her attention to the weapons and equipment scattered across the battlefield. The real war was just beginning. The galaxy thought it knew what humans were capable of, but it was about to learn the truth. Sarah Chen had come to Kethmar as prey, but she was leaving as something far more dangerous, the alpha predator of an entire world. 6 months after the Great Battle, Kethmar had become unrecognizable. Where volcanic wastelands had once stretched endlessly, there were now organized settlements built from the bones and technology of fallen hunters. The 18 surviving humans had not merely conquered their prison world, they had transformed it into something the galaxy had never imagined possible. Sarah Chen stood in the command center of New Haven, the fortress city she had built in the crater where the pack leader had fallen. Around her, walls of fused volcanic glass and hunter armor plates rose toward the alien sky, while energy shields powered by captured technology protected the settlement from any possible attack. The transformation had not stopped with buildings. Sarah herself had changed beyond recognition. The frightened woman dumped on this world to die was gone, replaced by something that combined human adaptability with alien technology in ways that defied every law of biology and physics the galaxy understood. Dr. Reeves entered the command center, her elderly form now enhanced with mechanical augmentations built from hunter technology. She carried a datapad displaying information that would have terrified every civilized world in the galaxy if they had known it existed. The breeding programs are exceeding all projections, she reported matter-of-factly. We've successfully integrated hunter genetic material with human stem cells. The first generation of enhanced soldiers will be ready for combat trials within 2 months. Sarah nodded, her attention focused on the holographic display that showed the entire Kethmar system. Red dots indicated the locations of hidden settlements throughout the planet, each one populated by humans who had learned to not just survive in this hostile environment, but to thrive and multiply. What about the spacecraft? Sarah asked. Marcus approached from the engineering section, his body now augmented with 4 additional arms grafted from hunter remains. The surgical procedures that had made such modifications possible would have been considered impossible by every medical expert in the galaxy, but Dr. Reeves had learned to work miracles with the biological materials available on Kethmar. The first ship is ready for testing, Marcus reported. We've successfully reverse-engineered hunter space travel technology and integrated it with human engineering principles. The result is faster, more maneuverable, and more heavily armed than anything either species could have built alone. Sarah smiled, an expression that had become something predatory and terrible over the months since her arrival. She was no longer entirely human, having undergone the same enhancement procedures as her followers. Hunter claws extended from her fingertips, her bones had been reinforced with alien metals, and her nervous system had been enhanced with biotechnology that allowed her to interface directly with the sophisticated weapons systems her people had built. The communication array chimed with an incoming signal from orbit. Sarah activated the display, revealing the image of a Thrakari military commander whose reptilian features were twisted with barely controlled panic. Unknown vessels in Kethmar orbit, the alien announced. You are ordered to identify yourselves immediately and prepare to be boarded for inspection. Sarah laughed, a sound that contained harmonics no purely human throat could produce. This is Sarah Chen, Queen of Kethmar and Supreme Commander of the Human Liberation Front. You are trespassing in sovereign human space. You have 30 seconds to retreat before we demonstrate why that was a fatal mistake. The Thrakari commander's eyes widened with shock and disbelief. Impossible. All humans on Kethmar were eliminated months ago. The hunters confirmed their complete destruction. The hunters were wrong, Sarah replied calmly. As are you. 20 seconds. Through the command center window, Sarah could see the sleek forms of human spacecraft rising from concealed launch bays throughout the settlement. The ships were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Organic curves borrowed from hunter biology combined with human engineering precision and creativity. This is preposterous, the Thrakari snarled. Primitive humans cannot possibly pose a threat to a Galactic Council battleship. We have shields that can withstand planet-killing weapons. 10 seconds, Sarah said pleasantly. The alien ships opened fire first, energy beams that could vaporize entire cities striking the human spacecraft with devastating force. For a moment it seemed as if the familiar order of the galaxy would be maintained, superior alien, technology crushing human resistance as it always had. Then the human shields adapted. Sarah's people had spent months studying hunter defensive systems and combining them with human technological innovation. The result was adaptive shielding that not only absorbed energy attacks but learned from them, becoming stronger with each subsequent hit. The human ships returned fire with weapons that defied every law of physics the galaxy understood, energy beams that could bend around obstacles, seeking their targets with predatory intelligence, projectile weapons that accelerated to near light speed and could penetrate any known defensive system. The Thrakari battleship, pride of the Galactic Council fleet, lasted exactly 47 seconds. Sarah watched the debris cloud expand across the orbital display, feeling a satisfaction that went beyond mere victory. The Galactic Council had sent humans to Kethmar to die as entertainment for alien predators. Instead, they had created something far more dangerous than they could have imagined. "Send a message to all Council worlds," she ordered. "Tell them that the age of human subjugation is over. We are no longer prey, no longer victims, no longer the galaxy's favorite targets. We have become something new." Dr. Reeves looked up from her genetic analysis equipment, where she was studying samples from the latest batch of enhanced human soldiers. "Sarah, we've achieved something remarkable here. We've not just survived, we've evolved. Combined human adaptability with alien biotechnology in ways that create capabilities neither species possessed alone." The elderly scientist gestured to the data on her screen. "Our enhanced soldiers are stronger than hunters, faster than Thrakari, more intelligent than any known species. But more importantly, they retain the one trait that makes humans truly dangerous: the ability to learn, adapt, and overcome any obstacle." Marcus activated the long-range communication array, broadcasting Sarah's message across the galaxy. "The transmission is going out on all frequencies," he reported. "Every Council world will receive it within hours." Sarah stepped onto the observation deck of her fortress, looking out across the world that had been intended as her grave. The landscape was dotted with human settlements, each one a testament to the species' ability to turn any environment into a home. In the distance, she could see the massive factories where her people were building the tools they would need for the coming war, because war was inevitable now. The Galactic Council could not allow humans to remain free, could not permit the existence of a species that had proven itself superior to their carefully maintained order. They would come with fleets and armies, bringing everything they had to destroy the threat that humanity represented. Sarah was counting on it. "Dr. Reeves, what's the status on Project Genesis?" she asked. The scientist smiled, an expression that combined human satisfaction with something more predatory. "The first batch of airborne genetic modifiers is ready for deployment. Once released into a planet's atmosphere, it will begin converting the local population into human hybrid forms within 72 hours. Non-violent, irreversible, and completely undetectable until the transformation is complete." Sarah nodded approvingly. The galaxy had taught humans that mercy was weakness, that compassion was a luxury they couldn't afford. Very well. They would learn to play by the galaxy's rules, but with human efficiency and innovation. "And the infiltration units?" Marcus gestured to a group of figures moving through the settlement below. They appeared to be various alien species: Thrakari, Vorthak, Zephyri, and others, but Sarah knew better. They were humans who had undergone radical surgical and genetic modification, becoming perfect mimics of other species while retaining their human intelligence and adaptability. 50 units ready for deployment," Marcus reported. "They can pass any known biological scan and have been programmed with complete cultural knowledge of their target species. They'll be in position on every major Council world within 6 months." Sarah felt a deep satisfaction as she contemplated the campaign ahead. The Galactic Council had created their own downfall when they decided that humans were suitable prey for their entertainment. They had given a supremely adaptable species access to alien technology, alien biology, and most importantly, a reason to fight without restraint or mercy. "Begin Phase 2 of the liberation," she ordered. "I want infiltration teams deployed to every Council world within the month. Start with the prison planets. Free every human in alien captivity and bring them here for enhancement. Then move to the slave worlds, the research facilities, anywhere our people are being held." She turned to address her entire command staff, her enhanced senses picking up the excitement and anticipation radiating from her followers. "The galaxy made a mistake when they decided we were prey. They gave us motivation, resources, and most importantly, they underestimated what humans become when we have nothing left to lose." The communication array chimed again, this time with multiple incoming signals from across the galaxy. Sarah activated the display, revealing the frightened faces of alien leaders from a dozen different worlds. "Human creature," spoke a Vorthak admiral whose tentacles writhed with nervous energy. "The Galactic Council demands your immediate surrender. Return to your designated status and your deaths will be swift and painless." Sarah's laugh echoed through the command center, a sound that would have chilled the blood of every alien who heard it. Admiral, you seem to be confused about who is prey and who is predator now. Let me help clarify the situation for you. She gestured, and the orbital display showed the approach of more human ships, dozens of them, rising from hidden bases throughout the Kethmar system. Each vessel was crewed by enhanced humans who combined the best traits of multiple species with human ingenuity and determination. I am Sarah Chen, and I am no longer the frightened woman you sent here to die. I am the Predator Queen, and humanity is no longer your prey. We are your replacement. 2 years had passed since Sarah Chen's declaration of war, and the galaxy would never be the same. From her throne room aboard the massive bioship Apex Predator, Sarah looked out at the fleet that surrounded the Council homeworld of Zentara Prime. 300 ships of impossible design floated in perfect formation, each one a fusion of human engineering and alien biotechnology that defied every law the galaxy thought it understood. The transformation was complete. Sarah no longer resembled the woman who had been dumped on Kethmar as prey. Her body had been enhanced beyond recognition, combining the best traits of dozens of species with human adaptability and intelligence. 4 arms moved with deadly grace, each one equipped with retractable claws that could slice through any known armor. Her eyes had been replaced with multi-spectrum sensors that could see across dimensions, and her mind interfaced directly with the ship's consciousness through biotechnological implants that had turned her into something between human and machine, but the physical changes were nothing compared to what she had accomplished. Across the galaxy, human liberation forces had struck with precision and overwhelming force. Prison worlds had been emptied, their human captives freed and enhanced. Slave colonies had been liberated, their alien overseers either fled or dead. Research facilities where humans had been experimented upon had been reduced to radioactive ash. Dr. Reeves materialized beside Sarah's throne, her consciousness now existing as both biological form and digital entity within the ship's neural network. Death had not stopped her contributions to the human cause. Sarah had ensured that her most valuable people lived on in forms that transcended biological limitations. The final calculations are complete, Dr. Reeves reported. Genesis protocol is ready for planet-wide deployment. Once released, it will convert the entire population of Zentara Prime into human hybrid forms within 72 hours. They will retain their memories and personalities, but their loyalty will be to humanity. Sarah nodded, her attention focused on the tactical displays surrounding her throne. The Council had assembled their greatest fleet to defend their homeworld, 10,000 ships carrying the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. It was in force that could sterilize entire star systems, and it was arrayed against 300 human vessels. The odds would have been laughable 2 years ago. Now Sarah knew they were meaningless. Marcus approached from the command section, his form now more machine than flesh. He had volunteered for the most extreme enhancements, becoming a living weapon system that could interface with every ship in the fleet simultaneously. Through his neural links, Sarah could feel the readiness of every human warrior under her command. All ships report ready for the final assault, Marcus announced. Enhanced humans are in position on every Council world. The infiltration units have successfully taken control of key defensive systems. The galaxy's resistance will collapse within hours of your signal. Sarah stood from her throne, her enhanced form towering over even the tallest of her followers. Around her, the bridge of the Apex Predator hummed with energy as biological systems merged seamlessly with technological ones. This ship was more than a vehicle. It was an extension of her will, capable of feats that would have been considered magic by the galaxy that had once dismissed humans as primitive prey. The communication array activated, showing the terrified face of the Council's supreme leader. The ancient Zentaran's crystalline features were dim with fear, his usual arrogance replaced by the desperate hope of someone facing inevitable extinction. Sarah Chen, he began, his voice trembling. Predator Queen of the Humans, we are prepared to discuss terms. Perhaps an arrangement can be reached that benefits both our species. Sarah smiled, an expression that had become something truly terrifying in her enhanced form. Supreme Leader Kethazar, do you remember what you told me 2 years ago when your people sentenced me to die on Kethmar? You said that humans were nothing more than amusing prey, suitable only for providing entertainment to their betters. The alien leader's crystalline form flickered with desperate energy. That was a mistake. We see now that humans are more than we understood. Surely we can coexist, find a way to share the galaxy peacefully. Peaceful coexistence, Sarah mused, her voice carrying harmonics that no purely human throat could produce. An interesting concept. Tell me, Supreme Leader, how many humans died in your arenas? How many were dissected in your research facilities? How many spent their lives as slaves on your worlds? The silence that followed was answer enough. Sarah gestured, and the display showed images from across the galaxy. Human settlements on worlds that had once been council strongholds. Former alien populations working alongside their human hybrid neighbors. Their genetic modifications having eliminated the aggression and xenophobia that had driven galactic politics for millennia. Children playing together regardless of their species of origin, all of them carrying human genetic markers that would ensure their loyalty to humanity's cause. This is what the galaxy looks like now, Sarah continued. Humans are no longer prey, no longer victims, no longer at the mercy of species that considered us inferior. We have become what you feared most, a species that is not only your equal, but your superior in every way that matters. The Council fleet began to move, energy weapons charging for a final desperate assault. Sarah felt their intentions through the sensor networks that covered the entire star system. 10,000 ships, each one armed with weapons that could crack planets, all focused on destroying the human fleet that threatened their very existence. She almost felt sorry for them. Almost. All ships, Sarah commanded. Her thoughts transmitted instantly to every human in the fleet through the neural network that connected them all. Execute Protocol Omega. Show them what humans have become. The battle was over in minutes. Human ships moved with coordination that seemed telepathic, their weapons striking with impossible accuracy. Energy shields that should have been impenetrable dissolved under weapons fire that adapted and evolved in real time. The massive council dreadnoughts, pride of their civilization, were torn apart by human fighters that moved like living creatures through space. When the firing stopped, Sarah's fleet remained intact while the space around Zentara Prime was filled with the debris of the Council's final hope. Sarah opened a new communication channel, this one broadcasting to every inhabited world in the galaxy. Her image appeared on billions of screens, her enhanced form a testament to what humanity had become. Citizens of the galaxy, she began, her voice carrying to every corner of known space. The age of council rule is over. The age of human dominance has begun. We offer you a choice. Join us willingly. Undergo the genetic modifications that will make you part of humanity's extended family, and find a place in the new order we are creating. Or resist and face the same fate as the council fleet. She paused, letting the implications sink in across thousands of worlds. 2 years ago, I was prey-dumped on a prison world to die for your entertainment. Today, I am the predator queen of a species that has surpassed every limitation you thought defined us. We are no longer the hunted. We are no longer victims. We are humanity, and we are the future of this galaxy. Sarah cut the transmission and turned to look out at the stars. Somewhere among those distant suns were worlds where humans still suffered, still fought, still struggled against odds that would have broken any other species. But not for much longer. The galaxy had taught humanity a hard lesson about survival, and now it was time to teach that lesson to everyone else. The prey had become the predator, and the hunt would continue until every human in the galaxy was free, enhanced, and ready to take their place as the dominant species. Sarah Chen had come to Kethmar to die, but instead she had been reborn as something the galaxy had never seen before. A human who had refused to accept the limitations others placed on her species. The transformation was complete. The galaxy belonged to humanity now, and it would never be prey again.